Paul was a rich businessman. He came back to his old town after 10 years. He drove a big car. He wore a fine suit. Everyone in the town looked at him when he arrived. People whispered and pointed. Paul did not smile. He just kept walking until he got to a small house. That house belonged to his old friend, John. John was the one who helped Paul when he had nothing. They grew up together. John gave Paul food when he was hungry. He shared his clothes. He even gave Paul money to travel to the city. But after Paul became rich, he never came back. He never called John. Now, Paul stood in front of John's house. The door was open. The house looked old and weak. A small child ran out, barefoot and dirty. Paul looked inside and saw John sitting on a wooden chair. John looked shocked. He did not stand up. Paul said, "John, I came to see you." John said nothing. He looked tired. He looked like he had not eaten well in days. Paul stood for a while. He then said, "I want to talk." John nodded slowly. Paul entered and sat on the only other chair. He looked around. The room was almost empty. No TV. No fan. Just a mattress on the floor. Paul looked at his friend and said, "I have something to tell you." John looked at him but said nothing. Paul's hands shook a little. He said, "I know I forgot you. But I want to fix that." Paul sat quietly in John's house. The room was hot. There was no fan. The window had no curtain. Paul wiped his face with a handkerchief. John finally spoke. "Why now?" he asked. Paul looked down. "I was wrong," he said. "I got rich and forgot where I came from. I forgot the people who helped me." John shook his head. "You didn't just forget. You blocked my number. You never answered my letters." Paul nodded. "I was ashamed," he said. "Ashamed that I became someone else. Ashamed that I never looked back." John stood up. "You only came now because you want something," he said. "Rich people don't visit the poor without reason." Paul looked up. "I don't want anything," he said. "I came to make things right. I want to give you something." John crossed his arms. "Money?" "No," Paul said. "Not just money." He opened his bag and took out a small envelope. He handed it to John. John opened it slowly. Inside, there was a house document. The paper showed that a new house in the city was now in John's name. Paul said, "This is your house. 3 bedrooms, running water, electricity. I also left 5 million naira in the account. It's yours. I want you and your family to move in next week." John stared at the paper. His hand shook. "I don't want pity," John said. Paul replied, "It's not pity. It's debt. I owe you. I can't change the past, but I can change today." John sat down slowly. His eyes were wide. He said nothing. Paul stood up. "Think about it," he said. "I'll come back tomorrow." Then he walked out. John could not sleep that night. He sat on the mattress, holding the house document. His wife, Mary, sat beside him. Their children were asleep on the floor. There was no light. Only the moon from the window. Mary said, "Is it real?" John nodded. "It looks real." Mary asked, "Do you trust him?" John stayed quiet. He remembered the times he waited for Paul's call. He remembered the times he begged Paul's secretary to let him speak to him. He remembered when their rent expired, and he thought Paul would help, but Paul never came. Mary held his hand. "I know he hurt you," she said. "But this gift, it can change our lives." John said, "What if it's a trick?" Mary said, "Even if it is, we are already suffering. This house could give our children a better life. They won't grow up in this heat. They won't go to school hungry." John looked at the document again. He remembered how Paul used to cry when he had no food. He remembered when they both shared one pair of slippers. He also remembered how happy he was when Paul got a job in the city. John said, "He forgot us for 10 years. Mary replied, "But he came back. He could have stayed away." John stood up. He walked outside. The air was cold. He looked up at the sky. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The next morning, Paul came back. He knocked on the door. John opened it. Paul asked, "Have you decided?" John looked at him for a long time. Then he said, "Yes, we will move." Paul smiled a little. John added, But I have one condition. Paul asked, "What is it?" Paul stood at the door, waiting. John looked serious. "I will accept the house," John said. "But only if you agree to my condition." Paul nodded. "What is the condition?" John stepped outside. He pointed at the small children playing near the dusty road. "They don't go to school," he said. "Some are very smart, but their parents are poor." Paul watched the children. One boy had no shoes. A girl carried a younger sibling on her back. John said, "Use your money to build a school here. A small one. Start with one teacher. Let the children learn. Let their parents have hope." Paul was silent. He looked at the children again. John continued, "We grew up in this town. We were lucky. Someone helped you once. You left. I stayed. I saw many children lose their way. Some joined bad gangs. Some girls had babies too early. Some boys steal to survive." Paul nodded slowly. "I never thought about it," he said. John said, "You came back for me. I thank you. But if you really want to change something, help these children too." Paul looked at the house, the street, and the people around. He sighed. "Okay," Paul said. "I will do it. I will build a small school here. I will pay the teacher's salary. I will give free books." John looked surprised. "You agree?" Paul nodded. "Yes. It is the right thing." John shook Paul's hand. Paul held it firmly. Paul added, "And I want something else." John asked, "What?" Paul said, "I want you to run the school." John's eyes widened. "Me?" "Yes," Paul said. "You know the people. They trust you. I will give you everything you need." John stood still. Then he nodded. 2 months later, everything changed in the small town. Paul kept his promise. He sent builders to the town. They cleared a piece of land beside the old church. Within 3 weeks, a simple school building stood. It had 3 classrooms, a small office, and a toilet. Children gathered every day to watch the workers. Parents asked questions. Everyone was excited. John became the head of the school. Paul gave him a new phone, a laptop, and money for all the materials. John hired 1 teacher and 2 assistants. He also made rules to keep the school clean and safe. On the first day of school, 7 children came. Some came with slippers. Some had torn clothes. But they all smiled. They sat on new benches. They held new books. For the first time, they had hope. Paul came that day. He gave a short speech. He said, "This school is not a gift. It is a way to give back. I was once like you. I had nothing. But someone believed in me. Now I believe in you." The parents clapped. Some cried. John stood beside him. He looked proud. He never thought his life would turn around. His family had moved to the new house in the city, but he still came back every day to work at the school. One afternoon, Paul and John sat under a tree, watching the children play. Paul said, "I thought I came to help you. But you helped me too." John smiled. "Sometimes helping others helps us first." Paul nodded. "This is the best thing I've done." Children laughed in the background. A new life had started, for John, for Paul, and for the town. The end.
Thank you for watching the video to the end. If you find this video interesting, do well to hit the subscription button, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell for new stories.